Part 99. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 989. Chapter 984. Originally I wanted to write a final review, but after thinking about it, I'd better wait until the extra chapter is over before I start pretentious starting from this chapter. Each chapter will basically be a separate story. The new book will be released after the New Year book. After Han Qian retired, businessmen in Binhai and even several surrounding cities breathed a sigh of relief. This man's retirement made them relieved. Han Qian came with great force. From an unknown person, it took him less than 3 years to become a businessman. Over time, Li Dehai was killed first, and then Go Daipeo, who united with the Binhai business circle to squeeze out the Lin family of the Changxiang group. Even in the capital, he has considerable skills. He is still young, a man under 30 years old. If he wants to expand, the neighboring cities will not be spared. Han Qian's retirement became a topic of discussion for many people. At the same time, it was a girl named Tong from Binhai who attracted the attention of these people. This girl appeared out of thin air. It is said that she was just a teacher before. But now she is sitting with several business tycoons from Binhai, chatting and laughing. It is said that this girl named Tong not only enjoys a good life in the business circle, but also wanders around in some dark areas after dark. She is also at home in business and everyone knows that certain forces are involved. This is not the scariest thing. What is scary is that this teacher Tong is not only well off with a certain force in business, but is also treated as a guest at the Yamen gate. Does Cheng Jin from Binhai know that? Now serving as the acting secretary and mayor of Binhai, the agent of shit is only in name for everyone to hear. He is now holding 2 positions on one shoulder. Teacher Tong doesn't even need to knock when he enters Cheng Jin's office door. If this is not enough, there are rumors that the teacher named Gu in Beijing is very optimistic about him. In the 3 circles, is it inappropriate that this person is the second Han Qian? But one good thing about teacher Tong is that she doesn't know much about business. Binhai's government office has supported many enterprises. Now Binhai is like a new life, but unfortunately there has been no splashing. Wu Qingxi and Wei Zhu's movie had a good effect after it was released. At least Cai Qinghu did not lose money, but made a lot of money. But what followed was Wei Zhu's announcement that he would take a break, and when will he be active on the screen again? Is an unknown quantity. But this guy's Weibo has never stopped updating, and he will take 1 or 2 photos from time to time. Most of them are of the construction of Yates's resort. Many attentive fans have discovered some clues. In Wei Zhu's photos, there is always a figure with short hair from behind. As time went by, someone found out the identity of this person. A young man from Binhai, a tiger man with a grassroots background who shakes up corporate conglomerates. Han Qian's name quickly became a hot search, and it also made Binhai popular. But within a few days, a hot search suddenly appeared. Someone with good intentions compiled Han Qian's entry. When Wei Zhu posted on Weibo again, the comments below were neat. It's a complete mess. He came out of the mountain at the age of 25 and was already standing on the top of the coastal pyramid at the age of 28. He is only 28 years old. But not long after, a hot search appeared out of thin air. The retirement life of Wei Zhu and Han Qian. Someone immediately left a sad message on Weibo. He reached the summit at the age of 28 and retired at the age of 28. Isn't it awesome to reach the summit in 3 years? Isn't it awesome to just let go of the money in your hands indifferently? It is easy to go from frugality to luxury, but it is difficult to go from luxury to frugality. Cai Qinghu was lying on the sofa, scrolling through his phone, and kept laughing while reading the messages on Weibo. The nursery rhyme on the side looked sideways at Cai Qinghu and frowned. Can you make some noise that people should make? Cai Qinghu put down his phone, narrowed his eyes and smiled. Teacher Tong is teaching you. If you don't go out to socialize today, why are you here at home? Come back and see your parents. Did you buy the hot search for Han Jian and Wei Ju's retirement? The government office is angry. They have been using the popularity to hype the coastal tourism industry. Your sudden retirement will have a big impact on them. Cai King Hu curled his lips and said, I only care about my husband-in-law. What does the life and death of other people have to do with me? When my husband-in-law goes to his house on the beach, the entrances of the government offices are like celebrating the new year. How can I feel happy? Tong Yao frowned and said in a low voice. I beat the leaders to the end. Don't you like watching others retire? I also let them experience the fun of retirement. Why don't you go see Han Jian today? Cai King Hu shook his head, then nuzzled at Zai Wu. Yan Qingqing is about to give birth. My husband said that Lu Shenga has been abnormal recently. He wants to keep an eye on me and wants me to keep an eye on Mr. Yan. Ji Jing, on the other hand, is about to give birth. She acts like a normal person and her warm belly is gone. Movement. Nursery rhyme sighed. Ever since the two of them slept in the same room and when Nuan cried a lot, the two of them didn't seem to have any close contact. When Nuan was afraid of getting pregnant, and now she's even more scared when she looks at Ji Jing's belly. Cai King Hu sighed, lowered his head and touched his belly. I don't have any movement at all. But you are right, Ji Jing is really a girl. Luo Shen calls Ji Jing 3 times a day now, as if she is her daughter. She is her daughter. Now the outside world doesn't know that Luo Shen can't have children. She needs a child to cover up the rumors outside. Otherwise, if it is said that the eldest daughter of the Luo family has been misbehaved and has a chaotic private life and cannot have children, the Luo family will also. If you can't handle this public opinion, are you watching here today? Then I'll come in the evening. Tong Yao stood up and Cai King Hu suddenly spoke. Don't always force yourself. My husband has been nagging me a few days ago, saying that I won't see you even once in several months. Nursery rhyme took a deep breath and sighed. Some dishonest people want to reach out to the seaside, and some short-sighted people are trying to make do with Yu Shisai and Yates. Those who haven't even grown their bristles always want to break arms with Chang Xiang and beat them. I feel much more at ease now. Cai King Hu stood up and frowned. Nan Grong, have you ever killed someone? Tong Yao chuckled and did not answer. As for whether he had been killed or not, only Kui Li, who was waiting outside, knew. After leaving the door, Kui Li got out of the car and opened the door. After getting in the car, Tong Yao whispered. Have you found the person behind Yan Qingqing's arrangement? Kui Li whispered. I found it. This guy once pursued the queen, and she became a little violent after that. Tong Yao took out a pair of myopia glasses and put them on. The woman's hairstyle, which was rolled up high, told outsiders that she already had a man. Looking at the information handed over by Kui Li, Tong Yao sneered. I guess it's because your young master has retired, and even Han Qian, who was making little fuss, didn't respond. Do you really think that no one can deal with him? Where did Su Hongchang die? Is he a bastard who has become determined by the scale? Kui Li lowered his head and whispered. It's the scale that ate the iron bastard. He won't come back even if he's beaten to death. Nursery rhyme sighs feebly. I can't do anything about him. Call the people in District 8 and ask them to send a car to follow us. Okay, little lady. The names of the several girls are somewhat different, the eldest lady, the young lady, the eldest mistress, the young mistress, Miss Yu, Secretary Ye, and Mr. Yan are more special. Sometimes the old man will call her Empress with a smile. After starting the Mercedes-Benz S600 and heading straight to the destination, Kui Li spoke. Little madam, the people from District 8 are following us. Please keep the big dog behind the wheel. Huh? Isn't this guy arguing every day and not caring about worldly affairs? I went to the 8th district to find him a few times. He hugged the door frame and said he didn't go out. He said he wanted to build virtue for the children. The sun is rising in the west today. Kui Li didn't speak, and the nursery rhyme continued. You just say you don't know some things when they ask them. Just because your young master doesn't kill anyone, doesn't mean that I, Tong Yao, am also a soft-hearted old woman. We drove all the way to a wealthy community. When Tong Yao and Kui Li got into the car, two people got out of the Volvo behind them, Guan Degu and Xiao Hai. The four of them walked into the community. Kui Li took the first step. Tong Yao was not impatient or impatient. Guan Dapipapapian came forward and said with a smile. Teacher Xiao Tong, my master said that if you were born in the same era as her, there would be nothing wrong with my master in the 8th district. Nursery rhyme pouted. Listen to Boss 2's nonsense. I couldn't meet Han Qian in that era. It's useless. You said that, I'm not stubborn with you, so I'm here to join in the fun. You can do whatever you want to do with Xiao Hai. Thanks. They're all one family. Walking to the door of the villa, the door has been opened. Tanjeo Dabu walked into the living room and sat on the sofa in front of everyone's horrified eyes. Xiaohei put his hands behind his back and looked cold. Guan Degu, who was wearing a red windbreaker, laughed. Half squatting on the coffee table. A few minutes later, a burst of howling ghosts and wolves came from the second floor. Nursery rhyme immediately frowned. Xiaohei turned to close the door. At this moment, a middle-aged man and woman hurriedly walked in outside the door. When he saw the woman sitting on the sofa, their faces changed, and the man looked angry. Nurse rhyme. Do you still have any royal laws? You are breaking into a private house. Nursery rhyme licked his ears, and Guan Degu chuckled. Teacher Xiao Tong. It seems that without Han Qian, you still lack some weight. Nursery rhyme smiled and said nothing, then Guan Degu pulled out the short knife from his waist, pointed at the middle-aged man and smiled. I'll listen to what you're shouting. Come on, don't control yourself. The middle-aged man looked at Guan Degu and gritted his teeth. Tu Xiao and I still have some interests involved. No, this has nothing to do with my master. I, Guan Degu, am considered a semi-retired person. I don't care about this. At this time, Zhongli came down from the second floor, dragging a man about 30 years old. The man no longer dared to shout at this time. He begged in a low voice and shouted that he didn't dare anymore and would never dare again in the future. Yes, but how could Kui Li listen to what he said? He brought the person to the nursery rhyme and said softly. My dear madam, this is the person. Inside this USB flash drive is the evidence that he bought a navy to slander the empress. Tong Yao stood up, took off her white mink velvet coat, revealing her graceful figure, and nodded to Kui Li. Kui Li grabbed the man's hands and pressed them on the wooden coffee table. Tong Yao smiled at Guan Degu. Road. Brother dog, can I borrow a knife? Guan Yunbiao did not agree, but winked at Xiaohei. Xiaohei did not dare to move. Guan Yunbiao reluctantly handed the dagger in his hand to Tanjeo, and then Tanjeo raised the dagger in his hands and stabbed the man's right hand that was pressed on the coffee table. The short knife passed through the palm and passed through the coffee table. When the man was about to cry out, Tong Yao bent down and said coldly. You're yelling at me to cut out your tongue. Letting go of the knife in his hand and looking at the bright red on the white sweater, Tong Yao frowned, then turned around to look at the man whose eyes were already red, and smiled. Li Mu. Let's talk now. Do you want to destroy your son's mischievous hands, or let him disappear from this world? You can choose as much as you want. If you choose the latter, I will give you a chance to get any house in Binhai. Investment from top companies, 100 million? 300 million? 500 million. Li Mu was stunned and flicked the knife on the table. Li Mu's son bit his lip in pain, but he didn't dare to make any sound. Li Mu didn't dare to hesitate and whispered. I took a knife for my son. Then I sent him abroad. Ha, do you think I am Han Qian? Will it be okay if I go abroad? My mother-in-law is about to give birth. If there is any problem with her mental state, you will be responsible. Do you think you are willing to get a knife? Then this knife should be aimed at the heart. Li Mu was silent again, and her wife rushed over like crazy, knelt in front of Tanjio and kept begging. Tanjio said indifferently. Have you ever thought about this when you were killing people with words? Isn't this the first time your son has done this kind of thing? After finishing speaking, Kui Li spoke. Back to Madam, during the investigation, Li Mo once caused a girl to get pregnant and miscarry, and then used words to slander her and posted her nude photos on the internet. As a result, the girl named Zhao Yingying couldn't bear the infamy and jumped off a building to commit suicide. Nursery Rhyme smiled at Li Mu and his wife. Heard it? After saying this, Tong Yao turned around, pulled out the short knife and pierced the back of the other hand again, then pulled out the short knife and threw it to Guan Degu, strode towards the door, and said calmly when opening the door. Your family has surveillance and witnesses. You can sue me at any time. But I don't know if your son will survive until the day of my trial. Tong Yao left the villa. Guan Degu chuckled, looked down at Li Mo, and said with a smile. You should skate, right? I will send you to quit. Teacher Xiao Tong, please wait for me. Do you want us to go see Qian'er? Kui Li and Ziohe left without saying a word. Tong Yao sat in the car and talked on the phone with Yan Qingqing, nagging that her clothes were dirty and she had to pay for it. Yan Qingqing, who was lying on the bed and touching her belly, said suspiciously. Don't tell me you went to find Li Mo. Why are you talking to him? I think I'll take care of him after I give birth to the child. I'm just here for my unborn eldest son, so don't be so sentimental. Nongrong, what have you done to people? I have lost both hands, and then I will wait for the internet violence. I am not the kind of Han Qian who leaves a way out for others when doing things. He likes to kill people with words, so I will destroy him with words, and you will be blind. Why are you talking to this Li Mo? I'm not paying attention. Don't talk nonsense, nursery rhymes. You, be careful outside. Now Suo, if I can't protect you, I won't carry the banner of Korean characters. Don't worry about having children, I will protect you from now on. We'll have dinner together when we come back tonight, and we're not allowed to drink anymore. New. After hanging up the phone, Tong Yao remembered Cai Kinghu's words. My husband nags me that I haven't seen you for a long time. Nursery Rhyme sighed and said softly. Xiao Li, drive to the beach to see if your young master is still alive. Don't tell him what happened today. Do you hear me? Oh. Kui Li lowered his head and agreed. The car soon reached the beach. Looking at Guan Degu, who also got out of the car, Nursery Rhyme whispered. Can you please stop being a light bulb? Guan Yunbiao pointed to the temple on the top of the mountain. I'm going to see Lushenga. I heard that he has been having convulsions recently. He is probably lonely in the temple. I will call Suliang and Weiju later and go to the temple to play cards. I don't care about you. Don't come and disturb me before dark. This house on the beach was built in less than a month. It is a very ordinary small house. In the summer, some vegetables would be grown in the fence garden. When Nuan and Jijing would always come over at that time. The 2 cows would roam freely on the mountain. Yates and his 2 dogs would follow. Nursery Rhymes would stand outside the fence garden and watch and play chess in front of the window. The 2 people laughed and shouted sweetly. Dad. The old man turned his head and waved to the Nursery Rhyme. Come on, Tong Tong, come here. Just now, this bastard was nagging that you haven't come to see him for a long time. Tong Yao opened the bamboo door and walked into the yard, sat opposite Han Qian, picked up the horse and put it in front of Hong Shui, smiling. "General." Han Qian smiled. "Horses can't walk straight, and they can't go this far. I am a 1,000-mile horse. That doesn't count as a general. I am a war horse." Han Qian looked at the chessboard seriously and pretended to deduce. After about half a minute, Han Qian put down the chess pieces and said seriously, "Teacher Tong is a superb chess player, but I am not as good as others. I surrender." Tong Yao narrowed her eyes into small crescent moons and smiled. "Are you really not going back to the city? Your Majesty and Jijing are about to give birth, so you won't go back to accompany them?" Han Qian sighed and said helplessly, "Which one should I accompany? Now Jijing's mood is very unstable and she often gets angry. However, the Empress has always been quiet. It's better not to join the crowd. Jijing has just left. Su Hongchang has been following Jijing recently. Yang Lan is also there in the evening. I'm here with you, your clothes are nice." Han Qian touched Tong Yao's clothes, and then saw the blood on the sweater inside. Han Qian frowned slightly, and then smiled bitterly. "Have you gone to find Li Mu and his son? What's the hurry? I'm waiting for my daughter's son to be born before I go to them to settle the score." Tong Yao shook her head and said softly, "You forget it? Didn't you go back to Binhai a few months ago? Some new business owners drove back to their hometowns overnight, for fear that you would go and chat with them. In fact, you are very good here. I will stay here at night. Can't get enough warmth. Is she going shopping with you Shisai at night? Su Hongchang has been following Jijing recently, and there is no one to see her off. He basically won't come here at night. What about Dad? Let's go after cooking." "Oh. Then I won't leave at night. I will chat with you and give you a bath." Han Qian raised his head and chuckled. "The relationship is good, let's clean it up, and then when my daughter is born, I have already thought of the name. The boy will be called Han Jiyi, and the girl will be called Han Chang'er." Nursery rhyme smiled. "I can feel it even before the child is born. You dote on your daughter hundreds of times more than you dote on your son. Be careful of my Empress quarreling with you." Han Qian smiled. "No way, you can't pamper a boy, you're a girl. Then she's my pet peeve." An update of 5,000 words. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 990. Mr. Han returned to Binhai. But no one was nervous this time, because the Han family's first child was born. Sure enough, Jijing's child was born first. Yan Qingqing's pursuit failed in the end. Han Qian looked at his daughter in the greenhouse with curiosity in his eyes. So small, so ugly, so cute. Han Qian asked the nurse, pointing to the child inside. "Can I give her a hug? I think she's a little cold." The nurse explained softly that she was worried that the child would catch cold, so she put it in the incubator. Han Qian was lying on the glass, his whole face pressed against the glass, and he wanted to stick his head in. The little girl seemed to be sleeping with her eyes closed. Han Qian was worried again. "Mom, look, the child isn't moving." Qian's mother sighed helplessly, stepped forward, opened the incubator, hugged the child tightly with a blanket, and then held the child in her arms and rocked it gently. Han Qian wanted to step forward, but then seemed to think of something, turned around and urged Su Hongchang to go bring me a mask, his mouth smells like cigarettes. When Su Hongchang came back with a pair of sterilized gloves, Han Qian dared to step forward and wanted to touch his daughter's little hand. When he reached halfway, he retracted his hand. "Mom, how about we put it back? I'm worried. Aren't you alive and well?" After saying that, Qian's mother placed the child beside Jijing's bed. The weak Jijing looked at the newborn child, her eyes instantly covered with mist. So ugly. This is definitely not my daughter, my eldest nephew. I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. Aren't you ugly? How handsome. My Han Qian's daughter must be the most beautiful woman in the world, just like her mother. After saying this, Han Qian raised his head and looked at his mother. Mom, can I call my child Han Chang'er? My nickname is Princess. Qian's mother nodded, then shook her head. You and Jijing decide the name, but the nickname cannot be too big. The princess is too big, so call her Yaer. Han Qian's face was wrinkled into a chrysanthemum. Jijing said softly. Just listen to our mother. Then Qian's mother told Han Qian to open the door, and soon there was going to be a commotion outside. Han Qian was too careful. After the child was born, except for the mother, doctors, and nurses, he did not allow anyone to come in, including Wen Nuan, who had been expressing dissatisfaction. Han Qian looked at his precious daughter, then glanced at the door, and said softly. Do you need to tell them to disinfect before coming in? Roll. Okay. Han Qian turned around and went to open the door. As soon as he opened the door, Wen grabbed Han Qian's ear and gave him a headbutt. This time Wen was really merciless. The two of them squatted on the ground at the same time. Girls, look after the kids. They are all women with overflowing maternal love. The child was held in her arms by nursery rhymes. Yan Qingqing asked Jijing softly if it hurt to give birth. Jijing cried at that time and nodded her head. It hurts so much. Several girls were chattering about the child. Han Qian covered his head and squatted at the door. Wen Nuan had already stood up and walked into the room, shouting. Where is my daughter? As soon as the words came out, several girls stood in front of the little princess. There were two people who couldn't hold this child, one was Wen Nuan and the other was Yan Qingqing. After resting in the hospital for a week, Jijing was discharged from the hospital. Han Qian also returned to his mother's new home. This villa with 3 floors and 1,000 square meters has more and more people in the family. The small house cannot accommodate them. Even sometimes the girls will not come back, but there are still many people at home. Now that the child is born, Qian's mother is not ready to let Jijing go back to live by herself. After returning home, the child never left Han Qian's side. He squatted on the edge of the crib and looked at the child lying inside. The daughter's eyes were very big, inherited from Jijing, like 2 black gems. Listening to the daughter's babbling, Han Qian's face smiled like a chrysanthemum. Call daddy. Ba, ba, ba. Call daddy. Wow. The daughter cried, and Han Qian quickly held the child in his arms to comfort her. Not long after, the father and daughter were on the sofa, watching their daughter smile. Han Qian was happier than anything else. He picked up the daughter and went to his mother's room, shouting Road. Mom, Yaer smiled at me. Does she like me as a father? Yates, who was sitting on the edge of the Kong, said helplessly. Mr. Han, the reason why a child laughs within 3 months after birth is because the central nervous system is not fully developed yet, so he can't help but laugh. It has nothing to do with whether he likes it or not. Whether he likes it or not will have to wait until 3 months later. Han Qian glared at Yates and whispered. You know what the heck, my daughter just likes me as her father. You all should be quiet this afternoon. If my daughter wakes up, I will fall out with you. Let's go see the goldfish. Watching Han Qian leave, Yates said helplessly. Isn't this a typical daughter slave? I've just been born, and I suddenly feel that I made the right decision in nursery rhyme. It's good to leave the child to Luo Shen. Isn't it lawless to not be pampered around Han Qian? Qian's mother smiled. This. I can't tell for sure. In the 3rd week after the birth of the child, When Yan Qingqing and Jing were about to give birth, Luo Shen, who was in seclusion, came over in the capital. The scene when the eldest daughter of the Luo family came this time could be described as luxurious, with a fleet of Mercedes-Benz S600s, and the second car, the car was a Maybach and the driver was near. Just the things for the baby that were delivered filled the living room on the first floor. At this time, Han Qian had been driven away by the shrewd Luo Shen. He stood by the crib and looked at Han Chang'er. In her eyes, this person was extremely cute. The little thing made her heart tremble. She raised her head and looked at Jing, who was sitting on the sofa drinking tea, and said softly, "Jing, are you really willing to give me your little baby to be my daughter?" Jing covered her head and said helplessly, "If you can take her away, it's best to take her away now. When she cries now, I want to cry." "No. We agreed to take him away only when he is 2 years old. I want to hear my daughter call me daddy." "Han Qian, shut up. The leftovers from raising my daughter are enough to support you. How about you go to the capital as well? Isn't this too cute? Sign the contract. You must sign the contract. I'm worried that you will regret it, my daughter. Hug, Mom." Luoshan picked up Han Chang'er, and the little girl stretched out her hand and grabbed Luoshan's long hair. Luoshan didn't like children before, but after learning that she couldn't have children, she desperately wanted a child. Boys are good, and girls are the best. Good. Now Han Chang'er looks like she is longing for a child in her heart. Han Qian sighed helplessly. "She's only been born less than a month ago, and the things you bought are enough for her to last until she's 18. I like it, I am willing, I have money. My daughter, please call me mother, Han Qian. Why don't the children's grandparents come over to see you?" Mentioning Jing's family, Han Qian frowned and said with a frown, "I really haven't come yet. It doesn't matter whether I come or not." "Oh. Then I will give the child's grandma some greeting gifts." "Ah. It's so cute. She wants to hug me." It may be that the child is more attached to Luo Shen, and he couldn't stop laughing in Luo Shen's arms. This is strange to say, every time Jing hugs the baby, she cries heartbreakingly, and every time after feeding, Jing will cry heartbreakingly. This mother and daughter. For fear that Jing would get sick after giving birth, her family took great care of Jing. Yates, who has been very idle recently, looked at the gifts brought by Luo Shen, and gave himself a gentle slap. "What a mouthful I am! Isn't this more doting than Han Qian's?" At this time, Luo Shen walked to Jing with her child in her arms. The girl who was originally smiling cried when she saw Jing. Jing covered her ears and gritted her teeth. "Take it away. She is definitely not my daughter." Luo Shen smiled helplessly. "Is your mother-daughter relationship like this just after we met? Jing, I want my child's household registration to be settled in the capital. This is why Lao Gu took the initiative to contact me and ask me to do something." "Oh." Jing's face was expressionless, and Han Qian spoke. "No." Luo Shen turned around and shouted angrily. "Shut up." With a sharp cry, the girl who was crying suddenly stopped crying. This time, Luo Shen was even happier. She scolded Han Qian again tentatively. The girl smiled, and Luo Shen laughed happily. "She is indeed my daughter." Han Qian had no choice but to use Yates's words to attack Luo Shen. "Children are born with imperfect central nervous system development." "Shut up, you know nothing. My daughter from Luo Shen was born a genius, and I was worried that Jing would be reluctant to let her go." "Wow, yeah, I've lived in Binhai for 2 years." After that, Luo Shen did not leave the Han family and settled in very calmly. He called Qian'er's mother one after another without saying anything. Then Han Qian's time for caring about his daughter was reduced by half, and most of them were held in Luo Shen's arms. This woman seems to have gone to study this year. She is more familiar with children than her mother, and she knows how to take care of the children. Under the care of Luo Shen, the daughter became more and more beautiful. But not long after, Yan Qingqing entered the delivery room. She insisted on giving birth naturally. Now she already had a scar on her belly. She didn't want a second one, and natural birth would help her recover faster. The last time Ji Jing gave birth, Han Qian was not there to sign for family members. Today Han Qian was waiting at the hospital early. When the doctor sent the documents, Han Qian said without thinking, "I'm not in the mood to sign this thing, please protect me. If the child is gone, it's because I, Han Qian, don't have this life." Then Han Qian bowed deeply. "You must protect your mother-in-law." Then nursery rhyme suddenly spoke. "If something happens to my mother-in-law, you won't be able to leave here alive." Then there was anxious waiting, and Han Qian kept pacing. Because Ji Jing gave birth to the baby within the due date, and the Empress had already passed the due date, Han Qian didn't understand, so he was very worried about it. A minute passed, and Han Qian suddenly raised his head. "Why isn't it better yet?" Nursery rhyme frowned. "It's only a minute. Can you be quiet for a while and stop moving around?" After a while, Han Qian spoke again. Tong Yao said angrily, "It's only been 5 minutes. How long have you been retired and you're so out of breath?" "Nonsense, that's my mother-in-law and my son over there." "Shut up, Han Qian, I tell you, you have never defeated me once, don't force me to plot against you here." Han Qian was quiet, but he still looked up at the closed operating room from time to time. Occasionally, nurses passing by would chat and laugh. When he saw Han Qian's eyes, he was instantly frightened and turned pale. When Han Qian was full of worries, the director of the hospital came and walked forward and whispered, "Mr. Han, don't worry, the doctors who will deliver the baby this time are experts with more than 10 years of experience." Han Qian raised his head and said coldly, "I feel like I've been there for a year." The dean suddenly frowned. "It's been so long?" "Don't worry, Mr. Han, I'll go take a look." After the words fell, Tong Yao said, "Dean Zhang, please ignore him. There is something wrong with his mind. It's only been 15 minutes. The dean looked at Han Qian and didn't know what to say. After another 5 minutes, Han Qian stood up and put his arms around the dean's neck, threatening him softly. "You are the dean, you have the right, please take me in and take a look." The dean looked embarrassed and said helplessly, "Master Han, this won't work." "Why not?" "The nurse can go in but I can't." I'll find you a set of clothes." Soon, Han Qian was put on an isolation gown. The dean walked to the door of the operating room. At this time, the door suddenly opened. Looking at the woman who appeared in front of him and the broom in her hand, Han Qian he panicked, turned around and ran away. Yan Qingqing pointed at Han Qian with a broom and said angrily, "Calling, listen to you calling outside. My humming gives me to die." Han Qian ran 2 steps and returned to Yan Qingqing's side. His ears were instantly pinched, and Yan Qingqing gritted her teeth. "Don't you humming cheer me up? Why are you so powerful as a retiree? Threatening the doctor, threatening the dean? Are you threatening me?" Han Qian didn't take it seriously when the slap landed on the back of his head, and asked the embarrassed-looking doctor inside, "Where is my son? How could she come out on her own?" The doctor looked a little embarrassed and explained softly, "The young master is very healthy, and my mother's physical condition is very good. She did not waste much energy during the natural delivery. I spent such a long time checking my mother's body, so." "Oh. Yates." Yates stepped forward and handed a black plastic bag to the dean and said softly, "A little bit of the Han family's thoughts." The dean resisted and Tanjeo frowned. "You look down on our Han family." The dean was about to cry and had to accept it. Then the empress grabbed Han Qian's ears and dragged him away. Han Qian was so worried that when Yan Qingqing wasn't paying attention, a princess hugged the empress, walking towards the ward in his arms. After returning to the ward, the empress shouted that she was hungry and wanted to eat dumplings. Han Qian went to buy dumplings. After buying dumplings, he watched his mother bite one by one. Han Qian was so worried that he kept telling her to take it slow. As for the child, he was already being held in his arms by nursery rhymes. Yan Qingqing didn't even look at it, stared at Han Qian with her mouth bulging, and said seriously, "My son is the eldest son. You don't have any illegitimate children outside, right? Don't I have a daughter? Girls don't count. Then such a son. You take it with you. It's like giving you a little oil bottle so you don't go around trying to hook up with little girls. Hey, I'll take the boy with me. Isn't that useless? What's the difference between him and me? Didn't your parents say you should take him with you? Can they be successful?" Han Qian frowned and then whispered, "I." Before he finished speaking, the ward door was pushed open, and Lu Shenge tossed his hair coolly. "Luoshan has robbed a daughter, so I will forcefully take away a son from you. The child will follow me after he is 3 years old." Han Qian frowned. "Get out. Does the child recognize you as his godfather?" Lu Shenge smiled. "I don't mind. I want to see whether Luoshan's daughter is better or my Lu Shenge's son is better. That's it. I will pick up the child after he turns 3. Too many mothers will spoil the child. Yes, Yan Qingqing, you don't want your son to bring you a bunch of daughters-in-law, right? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 991. Extra 3. I have been dragging myself around unreasonably for 3 years. My daughter went to the capital and came back twice a year. My son went to the temple and would go home on weekends to pay his respects to his grandparents. As for this dad, it was completely outside of Lu Shenge's education. Han Qian was a little worried about Lu Shenge's education of the children. What if the grandson suddenly taught the children to kill me? However, Yan Qingqing and Yeji both told Han Qian that although Lu Shenge had some mental problems, few people could match him in cultivating talents. Han Qian curiously asked how to cultivate talents. Yates said softly, "He has trained me for 4 years. To put it bluntly, he will give instructions in every tone of his voice. You can treat your empress like a free rein. Give me a goal and a deadline. You don't have to worry about Lu Shenge. There may be some problems with our daughter." In the temple, 3-year-old Han Jiyi sat on the steps and looked at the gate of the temple. He had not seen his godfather since he was brought into the temple. He could not even hear his voice. He followed the monks and uncles here. Eat together, sleep together. I remember his godfather made 2 promises when he brought him to the temple. You are 3 years old this year. You can do anything, play, roll around, make trouble, destroy the temple. I won't care about you, because you only have 1 year to play. The next time you play will be when you are 10. When I was 8 years old. Han Jiyi was very melancholy. I am only 3 years old, what can I play? You can't go knocking wooden fish with those monks, right? Bored, Han Jiyi picked up a wooden stick and acted as a hero in the temple. After a while, the eldest young man of the Han family squatted on the ground, covering his head with his hands and crying. The old monk in the temple looked a little distressed and was about to prepare stepping forward to comfort him. Lu Shenge spoke. Don't worry about it. His father and his godfather have never been coaxed when they cried since they were young, and he won't be coaxed by anyone. Once he knows that no one feels sorry for him when he cries, he will stop crying. The old monk sighed. After crying for a while, Hanjia stood up and wiped his tears, then carried the wooden stick to the corner. When he picked it up, he smashed the wooden stick into 2 pieces. Seeing this scene, the old monk frowned. This kid. Lushenga narrowed his eyes and smiled. It, Yan Qingqing has this temper. A month later, his life was no longer boring. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Han Ji crawled out of bed, ran to the yard in shorts, got a basin of cold water, and washed with his small upper body naked. He was very fond of the eldest son of the Han family and the monk in the temple. During breakfast, he ate quietly with a bowl in hand. When the old monk came, Han Ji stood up and said hello. After dinner, he went to see his godfather to say hello. He couldn't get in. Hearing from Aunt Chu that his godfather played games all night last night, now just went to bed. Han Jia did not linger, bowed and saluted Aunt Chu, then turned around and left the room and ran to the door of the temple, grabbing the big wolf dog's chain and running around the temple. No one has warned or told him what he did, but Han Ji really didn't know what to play in this year. Auntie Tinkle said this was called morning exercise. After running 2 laps, she led the dog quietly down the mountain. Xiao Jia walked very slowly for 1 kilometer. Along the way, he met many people who came to the temple to burn incense. Xiao Jia grabbed the dog for a while. The dog collar is afraid of scaring people. Sometimes I would meet an old Taoist priest. Xiao Jia would tie the dog to a tree, then sit next to the old Taoist priest and call him grandpa. Then he would watch the grandpa fooling people boringly and glance at the watch on his wrist. It was 9 o'clock. Xiao Jia stood up and bent down awkwardly, then led the dog and continued walking down the mountain. Someone looked at the watch on the child's wrist in surprise. The first thing Lushenga did when he opened his eyes was to pick up the tablet, look at the moving little red dots on it, and whisper, "Going down the mountain again?" Yan Ran followed. Kuladai whispered, "The young master will go down the mountain every day, and Yan Ran will follow him secretly. After all, the things on the young master are too valuable. The watch you gave me. It's okay." This watch was Lushenga's 3rd birthday gift to his godson. He specially customized the watch from a foreign brand manufacturer. The price of this small piece of gadget is almost enough to buy 2 of Cai Kinghu's R8s. The time is fake and the safety factor is high. Is true. Kuladai whispered again. "Master, are you too strict with the young master? In case the Han family is dissatisfied?" Lushenga sat up, rubbed his eyes, yawned and mumbled. "This is how I educate my children. Yan Qingqing and Yates are all my students. They will understand. Besides, why can't I educate my son? Zioku. I really didn't feel that way before. I thought that I wouldn't be able to educate my son if I didn't have one. Son, later I realized that I don't care whether I have a son or not because I have a younger brother, I have a mother, and I still have you and Yan Ran, but you will always leave me one day." Chuleti suddenly knelt on the ground and choked. "I won't leave. When Yan Qingqing left, you didn't sleep for 2 days and 2 nights. When Yates left, you tortured yourself so much that you almost went to the hospital. I won't leave." Lushenga smiled at Chuleti. "Why don't you follow me and become a monk in the temple for the rest of your life?" "Right." Lushenga stood in front of the window and sighed. "I used to respect Yates the most, then Yan Qingqing, and finally you. I also despised you as the stupidest, but I didn't expect that the only one who stayed with me in the end was you, a fool. Go play, and remember to give me some money at noon. I'll bring some food back. I'm going to be vegetarian every day and I'm almost turning into a sheep. If you have time, go to the capital to pick up my mother. Living with your daughter-in-law will inevitably cause some friction." "Yes." Chuleti left, and Lu Shengge returned to the bed, staring at the little red dot on the screen seriously. At the bottom of the mountain, as soon as Han Jie saw the door of a small courtyard, he crept into the courtyard and entered the kitchen. Looking at a bone placed on a small horse, Han Jie sighed melancholy and murmured in a low voice. "How come you were discovered? You stole from me for half a month in a row. Do you really think your father is blind?" Han Qian stood at the door of the kitchen and looked at his son holding the bone in his hand. Xiao Jie turned around and bowed to Han Qian. "You found out?" Han Qian flicked his little head. "Call daddy. I don't want this bone anymore." "Han Ji, you haven't called me daddy since you could speak. What's going on in your little head? You call me grandpa, don't you also call me old man? That's your father and I don't have any rules. Oh, give me back the bones. Take it and get out." As soon as Han Jie took the bone and pulled the big yellow dog, he ran away. Within a minute, the little guy ran back with a look of horror on his face, grabbed Han Qian's pants and hid behind him. Han Qian said with a bitter smile. "Did you see a ghost?" "I saw the child mother. Han Qian saved me. Call me daddy. At worst, he will be a good man again in 3 years. Han Ji, stop talking to your big dog." "Big dog? Bah, that's my uncle. Han Ji is really smart. Compared to his sister Han Chang'er, he is so smart that everyone in his family is a little scared. It doesn't matter much now that you didn't cry when you were born, but in the past few decades, if your child didn't cry at birth, the midwife would die. 10 months after birth, he was able to walk and call his mother, but Han Qian tried to seduce the child and refused to call him father. He was already able to trot when he was 1 year old, and now he is only 3.5 years old. Simply put, he doesn't look like such a big kid at all. The thing that made Han Qian think his son was awesome the most was when the child was 2.5 years old, he stood on the edge of the pool. After struggling for a while, he jumped in. The family was so frightened at that time that Han Qian jumped into the water. The child fished it out and drank a lot of water. As a result, the wasteful thing jumped down again at noon the next day. After repeating this for a week, Han Qian stopped caring about diving. This kid can humming swim. Looking at his son walking towards the door step by step, Han Qian sighed. "Why are you so afraid of your child mother? She won't beat you either." Han Jie turned his head and looked at Han Qian and said seriously. "Hit. Among my mothers, my child mother is the only one who can beat me, and my own mother can also cheer me up." As soon as he finished speaking, Tong Yao appeared outside the yard and said with narrowed eyes. "Eldest son. Have I ever beaten you?" "Mom. I love you the most. It took a lot of effort to call daddy, but it was a pleasure to call mommy." As soon as Han Jie hugged the child's mother's legs, he raised his head and said "I love you" a dozen times in one breath. Tong Yao felt helpless, touched the little guy's head, and said to Han Qian said helplessly. "Something happened." "Huh? Big. Not too big, but not too small either. On the first day our daughter went to the capital, she spanked every child under the age of 6 in the Luo family. There was no one who didn't cry. Gentle Ji Zheng. The irritable Han Chang'er. Are these mother and daughter?" Han Ji said seriously as he hugged the child's mother's legs. "My sister, I'll call my sister." As soon as he finished speaking, Han Ji flicked the screen of his watch, and then the brother and sister started a video, and Han Ji shouted. "Sister. I am Ji. Xiao I sent you delicious food, he he." Perhaps it was a blood relationship. As soon as Han Ji squatted on the ground and said this to his sister, the little guy maturely told his sister to be careful in the capital. Han Chang'er kept giggling. She liked this younger brother who was not far behind her very much. After talking for a while, Han Jie choked up and whispered. "Sister, when will you come back? Han Chang'er chuckled. Don't cry. I'll go back after it snows. After hanging up the video call, Han Jie raised his head and looked at Tong Yao. Mom, when will it snow? Nursery rhyme said helplessly. It's only June now, it must be November anyway. Can it snow earlier? Han Jian, aren't you awesome? I'm going to hit you if you call me my name. Korean mad dog. Then Han Jian picked up Han Jie and beat him up. The little guy didn't cry. He left his father's yard step by step with his left hand boned and his right hand holding the dog. His biological father couldn't go back to the temple to find his godfather. As a result, his godfather also died. He refused and told Han Jiyi that the relationship between him and Luo Shen was very stiff. Then Han Jiyi started waiting for it to snow. Beijing. Han Chang'er was lying on the soft pool by the lake. Nier and Luo Qing stood aside. Nier understood Han Chang'er's character and was not surprised by what she did, while Luo Qing accepted it all at once. This eldest lady is cute and pretty, speaks clearly, and has 2 dimples when she smiles. However, this eldest lady is so cold-tempered that she only called her uncle on the first day she came here, and then never again have spoken to him. She only smiles a little to my sister and uncle. As for the children of her generation, not taking action is considered a kindness. But for such a girl, the ancestors of the family like her very much, saying that she is exactly like my sister when she was a child. Seeing the young lady hang up the phone, Luo Qing sighed. At this time, Han Chang'er sat up and shouted to Nair in a sweet voice. And Ni, where is my mother? Nair smiled. I said I was making lunch for you. Hearing these 2 words, Han Chang'er got out of bed, put on her shoes and ran. On the road, she met several children who were beaten and cried yesterday. Han Chang'er didn't even think about it. She bent down and touched the stone to smash it. When she raised her hand, with her wrist held, Han Chang'er turned around and looked up at the woman behind her, frowning. The woman said coldly, "Wild kids need to know the rules." Han Chang'er was stunned again, her wrist was held tightly, but she didn't say a word, she just looked at the woman. When several children saw this, they all shouted that Han Chang'er was a wild child. Looking at the people in the corridor, there were more and more, not only children, but also many adults. Han Chang'er sighed, and just as he was about to put down the stone, a sharp scolding came from the distance. Hold it tight. Han Chang'er raised his head and looked at Luo Shen not far away, and said softly, "Mom, it hurts." Luo Shen rushed over in 2 steps, waved his hands and slapped the woman who grabbed Han Chang'er's wrist twice. The woman covered her face and looked at Luo Shen in shock. Luo Shen ignored the woman, picked up Han Chang'er, and said softly, "Mom will chop off her paws soon, be good." Han Chang'er didn't cry, she hugged Luo Shen's neck and lowered her head. This time Luo Shen became even more angry. He turned around and looked at the woman with anger in his eyes. The woman covered her face and said in shock, "You dare to hit me? How about I beat you? I think you 4 have long been displeased. Today I will put my words here. My daughter is the eldest daughter in the Luo family. Please put your children back for a while. If you let me know which of you is bullying my daughter, I will let you and Luo Yan end up together. Get out." The crowd dispersed like birds and beasts. Luo Shen choked up as she looked at the white-haired old man standing not far away. Grandpa. An old man who lived for more than 100 years had a great reputation in the capital. Even when he saw him, he would bend down and call him old man. The old man stepped forward and touched Luo Shen's hair, and then Han Chang'er said softly, "Yeah, don't use stones next time. Only knives can kill people. The Luo family is so big that if 1 or 2 are missing, no one will notice." Luo Shen. Is this your and Han Qian's child? Luo Shen lowered his head, and Han Chang'er struggled to get out of the old man's arms. He stood on the ground and pulled the old ancestor's little finger. "Madam, Grandpa, I will take you to dinner. My mother's cooking is too delicious. When my father comes to the capital, I will ask him to cook for you." "Beloved cannot get it? An old Taoist priest said that I can't see blood. I will. He takes away the luck of those around him." The ancestor picked up Beloved again and smiled. "Luck? The Luo family is most in need of luck." Carrying Beloved and walking forward, Luo Shen lowered his head and followed behind him, all the way to the restaurant. The Luo family all stood up. Luo Shen's grandfather stepped forward and wanted to take the child, but he was slapped in the face by his ancestor. The force was so strong that blood flowed from the corner of the eldest son's mouth. "Dad, I know I was wrong. The elders do not get involved in the affairs of the younger generation. This is the rule of the Luo family. This is the first and last time. Don't say that I don't respect father and son and let your family go out to beg for food. Get out." After sitting down, the ancestor looked at Han Chang'er eating and said softly, "Little God, that old Taoist priest from Binhai is responsible." Luo Shen whispered, "Yes. I don't know if it's accurate or not." "Accurate. The old Taoist priest calculated it for me once, but don't take it too seriously. The Han family's luck and luck don't matter. Do you really regard your beloved as your own daughter?" "That's my daughter. Girls from the Luo family don't need to be soft." "Grandpa, I..." Before he finished speaking, Luo Shen's father walked into the restaurant with the support of Luo Cheng. The ancestor frowned when he saw this. "Don't move around if you're not feeling well, and you want me to give away a grandson." Father Luo smiled. "I want to see my granddaughter." While talking, Han Chang'er had already ran to her grandfather's side, then pulled out a chair and said in a milky voice, "Grandpa, please sit down. Beloved will bring you some food to eat. Uncle Luo Qing will also sit down." Luo Qing was a little embarrassed. At this time, the ancestor frowned and said, "Sit down if Yatter asks you to, Luo Qing." "Was it painful when Luo Yan left?" Luo Qing knelt on the ground with a pop and whispered, "For those who left silently, please forgive me, ancestors." "That's good. I'm too old to remember people, so just delete Luo Yan's name from the family tree. Let's eat and eat. After dinner, you guys will accompany me for a walk in the back mountain to relax. It's been a few years since I've been with the younger generation. Speak." Everyone was silent. Han Chang'er whispered, "Ancestor, do you want to give your last words? My dad said that everyone should live well. He told me that I must spend more time with my grandpa and you when I come to the capital. You can't die." With a bit of panic in everyone's eyes, Luo Shen quickly stood up, picked up Beloved, and said softly, "No nonsense." Han Chang'er chuckled. The Luo family ancestor was silent for a while, and then laughed. "Yes, everyone should be alive. Just keep Luo Yan's name. Luo Qing, go and tell your uncle that there is no need to show off to the younger generation. I am still alive. Yes.